Mother's Day edition, my friends. Happy Mother's Day to all your moms out there. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Here in North Georgia, it is a blistering day. As a matter of fact, I just got done mowing, and here in a little bit, I'm going to throw some kebabs on the grill, and I can't wait for that. Pick some flowers from the rose bushes. We have many rose bushes outside, and man, nothing better than freshly picked rose bushes from your own that on your own land, which is pretty cool. All right, so today I want to talk about is doing some research on the new military, what's called blended retirement system. I'm not going to talk about that in this episode. Maybe at some point I will. I'll bring one of my friends on who's an expert for that. But I want more to talk about survivors benefit plan, SBP, the survivorship benefit plan, SBP, which is a pension that you get. So a SBP, if you're retiring from the military, you're going to get after 20 years, you'll get a pension, and you can take the full pension, and you'll die, and then your spouse doesn't get anything. That's how one side of it works. Or you can actually take the survivor benefit part of it, SBP, and you pay a premium for it, and your spouse gets 55% of your benefit. So if you were making $2,000 a month as your pension, he or she will get $1,100 a month for that. That's called a survivor benefit plan, SBP. And I came across this guy. I actually like his stuff quite a bit. As a matter of fact, I forgot his name. Hugo, and he's from the Your Military Money, because I was looking in the research on the new blended retirement system that the military offers, and that just rolled out this year. So all new enlist and I don't know what it's called for an officer. I don't know for all new people enlist in the enlisted ranks, enlistees, and I guess the all officer corps. I don't know what it calls when you go in as an officer, but whatever that person. So whoever shows up and signs up for the military starts as of 1 January 2018 will be part of the new blended retirement system, which I actually wish they had when I was in, because I served 3 years and 14 weeks in the infantry on active duty, and then another 6 in the National Guard, 6 or 4. I can't remember. But anyway, I served less than 10, but basically 2 tours. Yeah, I think it was just 4, but I forgot. But anyway, at the end of the day, I didn't get anything when I ETS, the enlistment terminated status, ETS. So when I got out of the military, I didn't get anything. I had nothing to show for it. Now, the new BRS, blended retirement system, is going to give you something to show for it through the TSP, the Thrift Savings Plan. And I think that's actually pretty cool because, say, someone like me who serves 1 or 2 tours, hey, we appreciate your service. Here's a going away present in terms of the vested amount that you have in your Thrift Savings Plan. And that's wonderful. And they didn't offer that to me. On top of that, if you serve 12 years, they'll give you a bonus as almost like not a re-enlistment bonus. They call it something. There's some terminology they use for it. I can't remember off the top of my head. But they'll give you a lump sum of money to keep you in for another tour. So if you serve 12 years, they'll give you this congratulatory, $7,000-8,000, whatever it is based on your salary, your rank, and whatnot. Obviously, it's based on your job. I mean, if you're doing infantry stuff, I imagine, well, I don't know. I'm not sure how it works. I just know if you have a highly skilled technical job that's in high demand, you're probably going to get more than if you had just an infantry job that's in the low demand. But I don't know that to be true. I don't know. But I don't know if infantry is considered low demand and the doctor is high demand. I don't know how that would work out in terms of the amount of money you get after you serve your 12. So what happens is you're in your 12 years, usually that's 3 tours, and they say, hey, we want you to re-up. If you re-up, we're going to give you this X amount of dollars for a bonus to keep you, to incentivize you to stay another 4. And that will be, if you stay 16, you're going to stay another 4 to get your pension, if that makes any sense. So what happens is, I think this guy, I'll show you who this guy was here in a second, but like 81% of the people or 90% of the people or some significant amount of people who serve in the military separate without any kind of benefit whatsoever. The military is trying to address that to encourage people to sign up, because if you're only going to serve 4, there's nothing out at the end of that 4 years, no benefit other than some small VA loans and whatnot, but not much. So they're going to say, we're going to give you at least a little bit of a help for your retirement plan through the Thrift Savings Plan. If you serve 12 years, again, it's 3 tours, and if you're enlisted, you're probably a decent, staff sergeant, E6, E7 sergeant, first class, maybe an E5, depends on what your job is. I don't know, but you're a highly educated for the military in your job as an NCO, and that is the backbone of the military. those highly well-trained NCOs, non-commissioned officers, are critical to stay in the military. So they're sitting there. I'm thinking, all right, got 12 years in. I got probably nothing to show for it in the previous thing, because a lot of these guys, these soldiers, and I'm just using the Army now, I think it's applicable to all branches, but a lot of the soldiers said I didn't have any money to put away in the thrift savings plan. So now I'm 30 years old. I joined when I was 18. I'm 30 years old. I got nothing to show for it. But man, I don't. My knees are getting out. I just don't want to go to the field anymore. I don't want to deploy. I got wife and kids at home. I'm just ready to call it a career. And that's a big loss for the military. That's a huge loss for the military, because that guy, that staff sergeant right there, that lady, has a significant amount of experience in that job, that military occupation specialty, MOS. And even as 11 Bravo, like I was, if you're 11 Bravo and you got 12 years experience, I mean, that is a significant person for your unit. Those people need to stay in the military. So the military is saying, we're going to reward you. And they call it something, I can't remember, I'm just drawing a blank what the terminology is. They're going to reward you with a cash bonus to incentivize you to stay in, because they know if you re-up at 12, that means you're going to be until you're 16 years. And there's no one's getting out after 16, because that'd be stupid, because you only got 4 years left before you fully qualify for the pension. No one's getting out at 16. So they're saying, look, if we can incentivize you to stay from 12 to 16, we're good. You're going to stay from 16 to 20. And I mean, I guarantee that happens 99% of the time. Conversely, on the other hand, there's also probably a lot of pretty good people who could be good soldiers, but don't want to risk it. They say, well, I don't want to go in for one tour, 4 years, for instance, and not have any, I'm going to sacrifice all this money that could be going to school. I could be in college. I could be at work. All this money that I'm going to, it's an opportunity cost. I'm losing money that I could have in my 401k, at my work, or whatever. And I don't want to let that, I don't want to waste that, to lose that potential for that money to A, accumulate, and B, grow. So the military is now saying, oh, don't worry, we have a similar thing, a defined contribution plan, the TSP, where you put money in and we'll match it. And when you ETS, either after 4 years or 8 years, whatever it's going to be, you're fully vested in it. That's freaking awesome, man. That's fantastic. And so that way, let's say you serve 2 tours and you're 8 years in, you get, I don't know, $40,000 in your TSP, because they're going to give you 5% match, my friends, 5%. And that's 5% real money. And again, I don't know what the pay scale is right now for the military. I just don't know. But let's just say you got 40,000 in your TSP after 8 years. If you separate from service, then that's yours, man. That is your money. Hopefully you do the Roth TSP, but either way, that's yours, and it can't be taken away from you. That's a pretty good incentive too, to encourage people to stay in. And maybe those guys, like I was, after 4 years, again, 3 years and 14 weeks, but whatever, after my first tour, might say, I'm not sure if I want to stay in, but I don't think I'm going to make it till 20. But there's a value there to keep that guy in for another tour for sure. So I think this is fantastic, the blended retirement system. I'm stoked for it. Now you are going to lose a little bit of your pension after 20. Well, I'll go on and finish up what we're talking about, the BRS. So once you hit the 20 years, this will be a good segue into the Survivor SBP, Survivorship Benefit Plan, Survivor Benefit Plan that you get as a pension. So let's just say you serve 20 years, whereas before I think you're getting 2.5 times salary, times your highest salary, your high 3-year salary. So you're making $3,000 a month as your highest 3 years. You get 2.5 times that. Off the top of my head, no, it's 2.5 times. I can't remember off the top of my head how it works, but it's 2.5 times. That's going to be reduced to 2 times, so if that makes sense. So off the top of my head, if you were making $3,000 a month, you're going to get, some portion of that is 45%. That's what it was. Now it's 40%. Is that what it is? I can't remember. Anyway, we'll get more detail on that later on, because the whole point of this is when you retire in this stage, you're going to still get a benefit. I think it's 40%. That's what it was. It's 40% of your top 3, whereas before it's 50% of your top 3. I think that's it. And I forgot what the 2.5 to 2%. So it drops from 2.5% times number of years served, I think, to 2%. Yeah, it is what it is. So it's 2.5. It used to be 2.5%. That's what it was. It used to be 2.5 times the number of years served. So if you serve 20 years times 2.5, it'd be 50% of your pre-retirement salary. That's what it was. So if you were served, again, 20 years and you retire, you get 50% of your pre-retirement salary for the top 3 years, if that makes sense. And so if you're making $3,000 a month, I should say, you get $1,500 of that. And if I'm off, the numbers do not retire based on me yapping here. But that's pretty much my understanding of how that worked in the old system. It was 2.5 times the number of years you were in as a soldier, and that would give you the amount of your percentage of your top three for salary. Okay. Now it's 2% of the number of years you were as a soldier, and that would give you the percentage of your top three as a salary, top three earnings years. So now it's you serve 20 years, you get 40% of your top 3 years in salary, whereas before, if you serve 20 years, you get 50% of your top three in salary. On the other hand, you only get 40% of your top three as a salary for serving 20 years, but now you're going to get the TSP because they're putting in money in there as long as you contribute as well. And I think they're actually even giving you 1% no matter what. Don't quote me on that, but my understanding is they're going to give you 1% even if you don't do anything. So there's still, I mean, I'm not saying which is better or good. It doesn't matter anymore because at the end of the day, this is for all new soldiers going in as of 1 January 2018. All right, so that's a blended retirement system in a nutshell. Again, before you act on it, man, here's the DoD web, militarypay.defense.gov. So just look at that, militarypay.defense.gov. But what I wanted to talk about was this guy here. My man Hugo was an Air Force pilot, just retired at Your Military Money. And he's got a video on here. Actually, let me minimize myself. That I like quite a bit. A survivor benefit plan versus life insurance. I like it. The guy's a very well-spoken guy. He explains it very well, easy to understand. And I like how he does this. Now, he just got out. And again, I don't know what's called for officers. For enlisted, it's called ETS. So that means you separate from service. And he's married with kids and whatnot. So it was an important thing for him to consider the survivor benefit plan. So I commented on here because I agreed literally 100% with what they said. And I said, I hear all the time about folks sacrificing survivor benefit plan to get a permanent life insurance policy. And so what that means is when you take the SBP, you're going to pay a monthly premium for that. All right. So the SBP, the survivor benefit plan, means that your surviving spouse will get 55% of your pension. So going back to what we just talked about, say you're going to get $2,000 a month as a pension, and then you die, your surviving spouse is going to get $1,100 a month, all right, for the rest of her life or his life, however it works. Now, for that, you're paying a premium of like $250 or $260. I don't know what it is today, but it's not insignificant by a stretch of imagination. It's high. And so what the alternative, a lot of people say, well, just buy a life insurance policy with the amount of the premium you're going to pay for the SBP. And so that way you get your full SBP, you get your full pension, that full $2,000 a month, and you don't have to sacrifice that $260 a month for the pension, for the survivor benefit program. Again, because the SBP, to have that survivor benefit, there is a cost to you. There is a premium that you pay for that. Again, let's just say it's $260. It's something like that. And so the idea would be, well, you get to keep, if you don't do that, the SBP, you'll get the full $2,000 a month, and you can pocket that extra $260 because that is money that would have gone towards the survivor benefit plan. But you have to replace it with something, would be the argument, and the replacement would be a life insurance policy. And in theory, this makes sense. And I'm not against this, But what I say here is people who sacrifice their SBP who did not pay for the survivor benefit plan, but instead they bought a life insurance policy or a permanent life insurance policy. And what I say is just make sure you proceed with extreme caution, because I cannot begin to tell you, and this is absolutely true, and I show in my other YouTube videos about people with permanent life insurance, that'd be whole life or universal life, and the policy doesn't perform up to what they thought, and the whole life is just expensive, no getting around that. But the policy did not perform up to what they thought, especially for universal life, and now they're going to be 75 years old, not doing so good health-wise, but the policy is going to lapse. So all the money that they thought they were saving by not paying for their premium on a survivor benefit plan, they're going to use that to a whole universal life insurance policy. But now they're going to get 70 years old, 75 years old, and not in great shape. But man, that policy is not done well because the interest rates have stayed low. The cost of insurance has gone up. And now it's not only going to cost that $250 a month that initially they had, but it's actually going to cost a lot more because they got to deliver cash to keep the policy solvent. I know that's a lot to think about. I get that. That's why you need to seek counsel on this stuff. It's critically important. But I'm just telling you, just don't fall from a salesman the idea of I'm going to sacrifice my survivor benefit. Instead, I'm going to buy a life insurance policy without giving it due research. Again, I'm not saying don't do that. Just you got to research it, my friends. That please, 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 it's critical. You cannot die and have no life insurance and no survivor benefit. I mean, you can. I don't want you to do that. That's bad, 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 bad. Don't let that happen to you. And so what you got to do is you got to make sure at the end of the day, okay, Mr. Life Insurance Salesman, I want to see the worst case scenario. What's going to happen if that policy does not perform? And that is what you want to get if it's a universal life policy. When is this puppy, if it doesn't perform, going to require cash infusion from me? And they can run the quote for it. They can run the illustration. In fact, I don't have any here. But when they run you the illustration to pitch you on the product, they're going to show you the assumed, and they're going to show you the guaranteed costs and the assumed rates of return, the assumed costs, and then they're going to show you the guaranteed rates, the guaranteed costs. You got to look at the guarantees because that is the minimal. That's a guaranteed minimum that the insurance company is going to offer you. Now, a lot of times they'll say, oh, don't worry about it. It's only happened once in the history of mankind or something like that. Okay, that's fine. That doesn't mean it can't happen again. Yes, it might have only happened once in the history of mankind, but that doesn't mean it can't happen. And on top of that, if it was so safe, then why are all these people running out of their life insurance policies? I see it with my very eyes, The worst case scenario is a guaranteed minimum. The assumed is what they're paying today with the cost, the interest rates, and all that. And then the assumed is a fair proposition. Don't get me wrong, but it doesn't have to be. It's not binary. It doesn't have to be the assumed or the guaranteed. It could be halfway down the middle. And again, you don't want to be 75 years old and your policy is going to blow up in your face and your cash flow is tight, and all of a sudden you don't have anything to take care of your surviving spouse. That's the wrong answer. At least the survivor benefit plan, the SVP, you know for a fact that he or she is going to get 55% of your pension. And that's a COLA adjusted too, by the way. So that's a big deal. Now, if it's whole life, at least the nice thing with whole life, you know for a fact, if you pay X, you will have that life insurance for literally your whole life. That's what it works. So you know for a fact that the premium is $500 a month and you pay $500 a month, you will have that life insurance. That's not debatable. You don't need to worry about so much. So whole life actually is my preference if you're going to avoid the survivor benefit plan instead buy a life insurance policy. Whole life is my preference, absolutely, because you know up front, if you do X, you will get Y at your death. Your spouse will get Y at your death. No getting around that. The reason why a lot of the salesmen don't sell you whole life, though, is because it's freaking expensive. It's expensive. I can almost assure you the premiums on whole life will be more than the premiums on your survivor benefit plan. So if your survivor benefit plan premium's $260 and your whole life premium's $550, let's just say, for instance, and your whole life does it give you $250,000 of coverage? And I don't know if that's a good trade-off. That again, you need to crunch the numbers there, but generally speaking, I like the survivor benefit plan. Now, one other thing I did want to talk about, and I was telling him here, is that if you are active today, like my man Hugo here, and again, he's not anymore, I'd like for you to go to USAA, and I used to work at USAA. Because Hugo talks about VGLI. I don't think he puts his, he doesn't have much of notes. That's too bad. He talks about VGLI, which is Veterans Group Life Insurance, and transitioning from SGLI, Soldiers Group Life Insurance. So when you're in active duty, you have this thing called SGLI. It's like employer life insurance, right? Basically, it's employer life insurance. It's cheap, it's guaranteed, and you pay a little bit, and the government pays most of it. It's a great thing you should have for sure. But what my man Hugo is saying is when and he's going to be financially saved because he's got savings, he's got real estate, he's got his pension, his Social Security, his spouse's Social Security, and that's generally speaking what happens with the military. Is a lot of times there's not a huge amount of liquid assets, but there are lots of guaranteed assets, and guaranteed pensions and whatnot, which is phenomenal. But anyway, so he talks about VGLI. And the only thing I'd challenge him on is the cost of VGLI, Veterans Group Life Insurance, is absolutely astronomical. Once you separate from service, it's just going to be tough to make an argument for VGLI. The only benefit about VGLI, Veterans Group Life Insurance, that it is guaranteed. So once you separate, They can't say, oh, you got heart disease or you smoke 8 packs a day. They have to take you on. There's no other way around that. But because it's guaranteed, they're going to charge you an arm and a leg. And so what happens is anyone is going to pay the same for the same amount of VGLI insurance for the same age. And I talked about this in my book, Strategic Money Planning, right here. Strategic Money Planning, 8 Ways to Get Your Financial House in Order. I'm not a fan of VGI, and I'm not a fan of employer-sponsored life insurance when you separate from service generally because it's freaking expensive. It's the rates that I think I have a chart in here, but the rates are banded. So the older you get, the more expensive it becomes. In fact, yeah. So let me give an example. VGLI, 50 to 54 years old. If you want $400,000 of life insurance, it's going to cost you $144 a month. The minute you go from 54 to 55, the premiums go to $268 a month. And you're not likely to die at 55 to 59 years old. And so it just gets more and more and more expensive. I mean, ridiculously expensive the older you get. And even if you're in fit shape like my man Hugo here is, he is basically paying a significantly higher premium than me who smokes 8 packs a day. I don't, but if I were to, because he's subsidizing me. That's how employer and group life insurance works. The fit subsidizes the less fit. It's just no getting around that, rightly or wrongly. And with VGI, because it's guaranteed issue, they're just going to say, if you are this age and you want this amount of life insurance, this is going to be your premium. Doesn't matter if you're fit, doesn't matter if you're about to keel over, nothing matters, which means the fit subsidizes the less fit. So VGI can work, make sure my mic's still there, can work actually very, very well for people who are sick. I get that. But for someone like Hugo, he absolutely should not do that. So what he should do, and this is what I love with USA, and again, I'm saying military life insurance coverage. A military protection plan is what it's called, MPP. And when I was there, I used to tell everyone who was on active duty to freaking buy the MPP, military protection plan. And here's why. It's term life insurance, all right? But what happens is it's guaranteed SGLI replacement. So when you separate from service, you can get enough to replace your SGLI guaranteed up to SGLI's $400,000. But what happens is, so insurance that grows you. If you're between 18 and 35, you can get another 100,000 term life when you marry, buy a house, have a baby. Coverage during time of war. It's not prohibitive when you for wartime, which a lot of life insurance companies is. But lots of benefits here. But the best benefit is that basically when you separate from service, you can get up to the SGLI without having to prove to be underwritten again, which is without having to go through another underwriting. So let's just say you're a 22-year-old soldier. You say, man, at the end of the day, I'm going to try to stay in for another 18, but I'm not sure I'm going to make it. But I want to make sure that my wife and children are squared away with life insurance when I die. You buy the military protection plan from USA. I actually think they call it Military Protection Plus, if I'm not mistaken. MPP. You buy this policy with USA, say $250,000 of life insurance, a 30-year term. I don't know, it costs $35. I don't know what it is. Maybe say $35 a month. It's incredibly cheap. You're being underwritten for a young man who's in great shape today, and that underwriting will never, ever, 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 ever change. You will always be for real. That will always be the price you pay as if you were a 22-year-old man who's in great shape. It'll never go up. It'll never go down either, but it'll never go up. And so when you separate from service, you can say, I do not want that VGLI. Remember, you're going to be forced to lose your SGLI, which means your only option is you go to VGLI, which is incredibly expensive. But if you have this military protection plan at USA already in the background, you can go buy it. You cannot buy it. You just say, USA, I'm dropping my VGLI, and instead I'm going to replace that with my military protection plan. A wonderful option that USA offers. I don't know why they don't advertise enough. It's fantastic, and you should do it because you're going to be USA is going to say, you got it. They're not going to get underwritten again, which means even if you got sick in the interim from when you took this policy out versus where you are today when you're getting ready to separate from service, it doesn't matter because you've already been underwritten. You've already went through it. You've already had it, which means you can now have the comfort knowing, the premiums are based on me as a 22-year-old soldier when I first took it out when I was in tip-top shape. My friends, you've got to get military protection plan at USA. It is wonderful. And if you're active duty, I think it's actually even for guardsmen too. Don't quote me on that, but I think it might be for guardsmen too. But if you're active duty, man, so just think about it. SGLI doesn't cost, I don't think, I'm not sure what it costs, but it's not much. So it's basically pennies. But you're going to separate from service at one time. At some time, you might have a medical issue, which means the only option you're going to have is VGLI. VGLI is just dadgum expensive. If you get the military protection plan when you're as young as you possibly can, because it's cheap, you're going to have that covered. You're going to have it covered for cheap, pennies on the dollar relative to VGLI. So I want to talk about that because I think it's critical to understand that there is a benefit out there called the Military Protection Plan with USAA. And again, I don't get anything from these guys. I don't work there anymore. I'm still a member, 4 generations of membership with USAA. And I do have some of my pet peeves with USAA when it comes to the investment side of it. When it comes to the insurance side, it's fantastic. And then finally, if you're going to do it, man, get it for 30 years, for heaven's sake. Just get it for 30. Don't drop that puppy and let it go for the rest of your life. So in that case, should you take this benefit plan? Well, if you got $400,000 of USAA life insurance coverage, all right, it's term now, and here's the drawback. Term will go away most likely before you do. In fact, I think there's studies like 2% of all term policies actually pay out. Now, with USAA, the nice thing is most insurance companies anymore is that you can convert the policy to a permanent policy later on down the road. So now you're 65 years old, you still got your term. You can say, I don't want it anymore. I mean, I do need the life insurance anymore, but the term, I want to, convert that so it's there for the rest of my life. Because what happens when that 30 years comes up, now you're 60, I guess be 55 basically. When that 55 year, 45, however many years you got it for, when you're at the end of that term, that 30-year term, the premiums are going to jump through the roof. Now you can keep it, you just got to pay the premium. And a lot of people at that point will say, yeah, I still want to keep some life insurance, so I'm going to convert this or a portion thereof to a permanent policy, whole life or universal life, and your premiums are going to increase quite a bit there as well. And again, now we're just going back to the risk again of, will the policy stay in force when you die? If there's a good chance that you're going to predecease your wife, your surviving spouse, then you got to make sure he or she has something to back up the fact that if you did not take the survivor benefit plan. You got to have something. You got to have life insurance, you got to have cash, you got to have something. And if you don't do the survivor benefit plan, then you need to do insurance policy. And if the insurance policy is not there when you kick off, then she is in a world of hurt, or he, depending on who the surviving spouse is. Now, if the surviving spouse most likely is going to predecease you for whatever reason you think that's the case, then yeah, you don't need a survivor benefit plan. I mean, what's the point? You're paying pretty significant premiums for policy for a benefit that you're never going to use. But I don't know if I'd want to take that risk that my spouse is going to survive me unless there's some significant reason to think about that. So at the end of the day, do you need the survivor benefit plan? My default, like my man Hugo is here, is yes. If you're not going to get the survivor benefit plan, what is the replacement for it? Well, it's going to be life insurance for sure. What's the best way to get life insurance is not VGLI, no. It's to get a private policy while you're active, and USA offers it. I don't know if Navy Federal does, but USA offers a wonderful tool for sure. The third thing, though, is at the end of the day, as you get older and it looks more and more like you're going to survive, or your spouse is going to survive you for whatever reason, how are you going to make sure that he or she has a cash flow of either pension or life insurance when you die? And the only 2 options are a survivor benefit plan or life insurance, and both have risks. Survivor benefit plan has risks that the premium's not cheap. On top of that, it's only going to be 55% of your pension. So the idea would be you get a cheaper premium for life insurance, and it'll pay not a percentage of your pension, but it'll pay a lump sum, $200,000 or $300,000 tax free. Again, it sounds great in theory, but that life insurance is not in force when you die, then she gets nothing. You can't have that happen. So a lot to chomp on. I would definitely, before I just made a quick decision, I'd be running some numbers here on this for sure. And, obviously there's lots of YouTube videos here you can look at for sure. But man, look into it before you make a rash decision, because it could be brutal what you do if you do not have survivor benefit plan, you die, and then you don't have a life insurance as well. All right. Hope this helpful. It's helpful. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up for sure. Don't forget to subscribe. And you see Hugo's little red button there, subscribe. He's got 5,400 people who subscribe to the channel, so he's doing good work. Don't forget to hit this little, where's the bell for notification? Yeah, there's a notification bell in there someplace. Don't forget to hit the up here. Yeah, so don't forget to hit the notification bell to say you want to be updated when I put out new content. And of course, comments are always helpful for sure. So if you have an issue or you've had an experience with SBP or the life insurance options or VGLI, love to hear them. Absolutely, love to hear them. Just put them in the comments below. Lastly, don't forget to go to the webpage, heritagewealthplanning.com, heritagewealthplanning.com, and then just Google the Josh Scanlon podcast, and my podcast will come up as well. We'll see you next time on the Heritage Wealth Planning YouTube channel. Thanks, guys.